because it means they're going to need to change something about themselves.
And
right, guys,
welcome everyone to another installment of David Green Real Estate here live on YouTube Friday night, September 22nd, 2023. We've got with us some special guests. We got Mr. David Green himself, but we also have the one broker himself, the Lone Ranger, Mr. Christian Bachelder. Christian, what is going on, my friend? How are you tonight?
I'm waiting for the let's get ready to rumble. Man, you got it down.
Let's get ready to rumble. I remember that guy. That guy was,
you know, he still does work. He works for the UFC now.
I did see him on the UFC. I also saw him, I think, on opening weekend of the NFL. I think one of the week one games. I think he was he did a little let's get ready to rumble at one of the home openers for the NFL, which was pretty funny to see him.
That's pretty cool.
He was at the hotel I was staying at in Boston when I went to the UFC fight. A lot of the fighters were there. There's a couple of Bigger Pockets fans that fight in the UFC. Actually, champions like Chris Weidman is one of them. Aljamain Sterling. He spoke awesome. To Aljamain spoke to Spartan League, and he was the champion that night. He'll get it back, but he was there like at the hotel hanging out and announcing all the fighters. So that is a common thing. It's funny. I know Kyle, I don't mean to take it over, but Jeff Reagan here says, have I ever teamed up or worked with Meet Kevin? We did have him on our show, but the Bigger Pockets podcast, but I'm actually making plans to go down to where he lives in Southern California, where Christian is right now, to record with him to promote Pillars. It's funny that this person asked that because we were just discussing this morning the details of how we're going to put all that together.
There you go.
That is pretty cool. I really like
Christian,
that.
you might have the wrong mic picking up. Usually you sound a little bit different.
I probably do. Stand by. 2 seconds.
All right, Kyle, back to you.
Immediately.
Back to me. Let's see. Who do we have here tonight? Do us a favor. Drop a little message in the chat and let us know where you're hanging out from tonight. Will H says he's all ready for the stream tonight. So good to have you here.
Real quick,
Javier,
test.
Oh, yeah.
Test.
Dude, you sound really good.
Boom.
There we go. Thanks for fixing that. Javier, he's in the Spartan League saying, what's up? Jimmy Wisecarver, also in the Spartan League, saying, what's up? Absolutely. Jeff asked, are you going to have a Ventura or an LA meetup, David?
We should actually do that now that I think about it. If there's enough timing, we could put one of those things together. Christian will be there too.
Yeah. We've had, I think, 3 LA meetups this year. If you're not on David's Instagram, I believe it gets posted pretty frequently up until then. I don't believe we had one in Ventura yet. We do have realtors and loan officers that service the area. But most of our meetups end up being in LA. I think we've done, what have we done? Beach. And I think we did one other one.
What was the one we just did? It was near the airport.
That's the one I'm thinking of. It was near the airport. Yeah, that's where I think it was it in like Inglewood? I don't know. Somewhere.
Yes, it was near Inglewood.
It was Inglewood, right?
You're right.
So we've done Inglewood, Long Beach, and Anaheim in SoCal. I guess Anaheim's technically Orange County, but absolutely, we do SoCal meetups all the time. If you're not getting notified for it, get on David's Instagram.
Question for everybody. Let me know in the comments. When you hear Inglewood, does your brain immediately try to fill it in with up to no good? When you hear Long Beach, do you immediately try to say LBC? If you hear Compton, do you immediately think NWA? I'm just curious if other people's brains work the same way. And Christian, are you old enough to catch any of those references?
I am, believe it or not. You know what I think of Inglewood, though? I think of Paul Pierce saying it. Paul Pierce played for the Celtics, and he was from Inglewood, and he used to say, I'm from Inglewood.
Do you want to know a funny story about Paul Pierce that has nothing to do with real estate?
Let's hear it.
There was a time where people like to be cool, and so as saying, hello, man, they would say, what up, blood? But they didn't always pronounce the D, so it was like, what up, blood? I'm sure many of you remember these years. I'm glad that we have moved on past that stupid phase. Well, Paul Pierce was in his own stupid phase and was in the East Coast somewhere, or maybe he was in LA. Is he from LA?
Yeah, he's from Inglewood. He grew up in Inglewood.
Okay, so he talked like that, and then he went to Boston, and at a bar he said that to somebody. What up, blood? Trying to be cool. Well, that person interpreted it as, you're a blood and you're giving me a greeting like a fellow gang member, but I am on the C's side. This person was a Crip, and he got stabbed multiple times because they thought that he was a rival gang member because he was trying to look cool. And he credits his leather jacket as saving his life because it stopped the knife wounds from going through a lot of times. People don't all know that story, but this is a great, like, at all these people in the chats that absolutely know what I'm talking about here. But this is like the most interaction that
that's very funny.
Time that we did this show.
The moral of the story is buy real leather, right? Fake leather wouldn't have stopped the knife. Right?
And don't try to be cool. Sometimes trying to be trendy
don't try to be cool
is stupid. Like, he literally almost died, right? The truth, we almost never had him. So you see this stuff a lot too when you work in the law enforcement community. You're like, here's blood everywhere, chopped off limbs, complete mayhem, and you get to the bottom of how it started. And it almost was always something really stupid just like this.
I really like that. And while we're on the topic of popular culture, this is how I'm going to bring us back to real estate. I'm going to read you a list of movies, and I want you to tell me what they have in common, specifically with the real estate market. This actually comes from a friend of mine. His name's Ryan Lundquist. He runs the Sacramento Appraisal blog. But here's the list of movies: Billy Madison, Toy Story, Clueless, Seven, The Net, Braveheart, Ace Ventura, The Usual Suspects, Mr. Holland's Opus, Bad Boys, Friday, and Apollo 13.
That's a lot of movies to have something.
They all have somebody from Boston in them.
Close. Not quite. It has more to do with the year than it does with geography. Basically, all of these movies were the most popular in 1995. And basically what they're saying, what he said was mortgage demand is at its lowest since 1995. Is that correct?
There's a spin for you. I like that. I'll respect that. That most likely is correct. I did not expect to hear Toy Story and Braveheart in the same sentence tonight, though. That's a deep cut right there.
Along with Friday.
And Friday. Had a couple good ones in there.
Mr. Holland's Opus being put in the same category as Friday. I don't know that that's ever happened before.
Yeah, dude, that a lot of those movies, or just reading that list, brought me back to my childhood. Gave me a little bit of like PTSD. It was hard. It's hard being a kid and hard growing up. I mean, the 90s were a great time, but it was also like, it's really tough growing up in the 90s.
They didn't feel like a great time when we were going through them. We call them a great time now, but I don't remember being super happy during the 90s. Yeah. They show some stuff of like from the 70s or 80s, like the jungle gyms that kids would play in, like 20 feet above the air on these monkey bars. And remember how like hot the slides would get in the California 100-degree heat? Like
they were so hot.
Like, what the hell were people thinking letting us play on that type of stuff as kids? Like, every day at school there was some kid breaking his arm because he jumped off the slide or he got pushed off the slide.
I have very vivid memories of the girl I was crushing on, gosh, I think in like second grade, getting pushed off the top of the jungle gym and having a compound fracture. Valerie, if you're out there somewhere, I remember this. Her bone was pointing out literally like this, out of her forearm. I'll never forget that image. Wow. That scarred me a little bit.
Medevacing kids left and right out of playgrounds, and still no one thought maybe we should change the way that the jungle gyms are. Even jungle gym is a stupid name. Like, you're begging for people to get hurt, but like there's a lot of stuff like that going on in the 90s.
Well, like the whole Mexican alien things. I showed my kids the YouTube video of the Mexican government displaying these aliens that they found. And my kids look at it and they just go, okay. If we would have seen that when we were kids, in 1995, we would have been like, "What the hell? This is so scary."
Do you remember that meme guy from the History Channel? Aliens with this crazy hair.
Do you remember that there was a pay-per-view special where they claimed that they had an alien body and they were going to do an autopsy on it, and you had to pay like $50 and you could watch it? Do you remember that, Kyle?
Huge. Yeah,
it was a huge deal. Everyone was talking about it. You were, is it real? Is it fake? Well, you had to pay to find out, right? That was all people talked about for like a month. And it was on the news. Now they have, oh yeah, whatever, alien bodies. We've just accepted it.
Yeah. They're like, oh, whatever. That's kind of cool. And then they just move on and do their thing, get on your skateboard and run away and have fun. So
Brandon Turner said that to me one day. He said, David, if it was confirmed aliens have visited our world and we meet them, everyone would talk about it for 2 weeks and then we just forget all about it and move on. And I think he's right. I really do think that is now the culture that we live in. Like, aliens could come down and it would be 2 weeks over. We'd be over it. What's the next TikTok dance? When's the next Fortnite game dropping?
What would you say over under the bet on the first word spoken to the alien? What up, look? We'll send Paul Pierce. Oh
Oh man.
Yeah. Before we hand it back to Kyle, Daniel G said, I got a question though. How much NWA do cops or former cops listen to? If you want to know the truth, Daniel, I think that there are more cops listening to rap than any other genre of people. That is all that we listened to when we were cops. There's that funny meme of like me driving to work to like fight crime, listening to nothing about like murder, drug dealing, and kidnapping or something like that. Like that's every single cop driving to their shift listening to gangster rap.
Crazy.
All right, Kyle, what are we going to be talking about today?
So today we are actually going to be talking about 1% down payment mortgages. Those are something that is actually here. And we're going to dive into that. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the ins and the outs of those types of loan packages. And so whenever we talk about something specific related to loans, we bring in David's partner in the One Brokerage and one of the most knowledgeable loan experts out there, Mr. Christian Bachelder. So we'll be curious to get his response today. We've actually got 2 videos we're going to be reviewing today. One of them comes from Minority Mindset and the other from Graham Stephan himself. Before we jump into the video, is there anything you want to do, Christian, to maybe lay out any preface about 1% mortgages? Maybe just a very brief definition of what they are.
Yeah, there's a lot of different variations of them kind of hitting the market. Whenever, just on a kind of a grand scale of things, whenever lenders are struggling selling loan products, they're just like any other service in the world, right? They're going to start pivoting to more creative things. You know, in 2008, you saw 40-year interest-only loans, you saw ARMs, you saw balloon payments. That's where they pivoted there. We kind of got a different pivot this time around where they're, you know, it's still for primary residences. You can't put 1% down on an investment still. All the bigger pockets people are saying, can I go get it? Can I get that fourplex? Right? Not that, unfortunately, but we are seeing kind of a surge in these low down payment options. Typically, they come as down payment assistance. Or just a straight grant. What I would say is I'll go into detail as we go on. Read the fine print would be my if I could just put one clause on them, and make sure you're getting advised accordingly, because some of them have some extra little tidbits that you want to make sure you're knowledgeable of before you end up moving on one. I'll precursor it with that, and we'll get into detail as we go on.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into video number 1 with Minority Mindset. And here we go.
Released a brand new 1% down payment mortgage option to make it a little bit easier for home buyers to go out and buy a home. But that doesn't mean it doesn't come with any risks. Let me read you what Zillow had to say about this. They said that, quote, most markets are in the midst of an affordability crisis, and saving for a down payment remains one of the biggest barriers for many potential home buyers. Now, they're not wrong. Getting a down payment to buy a home, especially, let's say you want to buy a $500,000 home and you want to put 20% down, that's $100,000 you need to save to buy the $500,000 home at a time where home prices have been growing faster than wages. So if you want to save 20% to buy a home, it is difficult. 100%. It's one of the biggest barriers to buy a home. Absolutely 100%. But why is that a barrier in the first place? Why don't we have 0% down payment mortgages? Well, the reason why we don't have 0% down payment mortgages today, or at least the way we don't have them now as before, is because when people don't have any skin in the game, they don't have any equity in their homes, they're more likely to leave if things go bad. That's what happened in 2008. Lots of people had homes with 0% down payment mortgages or very low down payment mortgages. Home prices fell. They were no longer able to make the monthly payments. And so instead of mailing in the next check for their mortgage, they just mailed in the keys and said, we don't want to deal with this. We'd rather just go and do something else. So that's the risk with a low down payment mortgage. But this is where Zillow is saying that they are trying to address the affordability crisis in the housing market. Now, currently, this 1% down payment mortgage program is only available in Arizona at the time of me recording this video, but Zillow has come out publicly and said that they do want to expand it into other markets. This is kind of like the test. But if we talk about this whole idea of affordability, the question is, does an easier down payment make buying a home more affordable? Because if you go out and you buy a home with a 1% down payment, what does that mean? It means you need less cash up front to go out and buy the home, But that doesn't mean that the home is cheaper. In fact, it actually makes home affordability even worse because, well, one of the things that impacts the price of homes is demand, right? The price of homes are determined by supply and demand. We have the lowest supply of homes really ever. So we have such a low supply and demand is slowly coming down because mortgage rates have gone up so quickly. However, even though demand has come down, it's still higher than supply, which is why we're still seeing this big kind of craze in the housing market. You have so little supply and demand is falling, but it's still higher than supply. Now, if mortgage rates fell, what would happen? You'd see a whole flood of buyers enter the housing market wanting to buy a home because they want to take advantage of the cheaper mortgage rates. That's not what's happening today, but Zillow is saying, let's make buying a home more affordable. If you make buying a home, quote unquote, more affordable, right? You need less money for the down payment. What happens? More people want to go out and take advantage of it because they say, oh, I don't need $100,000 to buy this home. I can buy this home with, let's just say $5,000. $5,000 is a lot more achievable than $100,000. So now you could have potentially more buyers. If you have more buyers, that means more demand. If you have more demand without more supply, because a 1% down payment mortgage is not going to affect the supply side of homes. It's going to affect the demand side. If more people want to buy homes, what's that going to do to home affordability? Well, if more buyers than more sellers, if you have more buyers than sellers, that means more buyers are bidding against each other for one of these homes, which then ultimately pushes home prices up. So home prices are determined by supply and demand. When you have more demand than supply, that pushes home prices up. And when Zillow was trying to fight home affordability, this crisis, by making it easier for people to go out and buy a home, it makes it easier for people to go out and buy a home, but it does not solve the home affordability issue. Now, of course, part of the reason why Zillow wants to do this is to incentivize people to go out and actually buy homes. They're hoping they can move more inventory, especially because Zillow has seen their home sales drop significantly. Zillow reported that revenue in its mortgage business was down 17% year over year. And this is from second quarter of 2022 to the second quarter of 2023. Why? Because, well, the demand for buying a home has fallen, but supply of homes for sale has fallen even further. And this is where understanding the risks with the 1% down payment mortgage is very important to understand, especially as a consumer, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's giving you the mortgage. The mortgage banker is in the business of just trying to sell you a loan. That's how they make money. It is your job as a financially educated person to know what kind of mortgage you can afford and what kind of mortgage you should get, because you are going to be the one that's left with the bill, and you're going to be the one that's left with the payment, and you're going to be the one that's left with the home, even if you cannot make the payments. It is not your mortgage banker's duty to look out for your best financial interest. Although it should be, but that's not what it is. And this is where you have to be the one that's financially educated and understand that if you're putting very little money down, why are you doing that? Is it because you can't afford the home? And if you cannot, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't go out and buy something that you can't afford. Because if home prices do fall, you don't want to be the one that's left holding this home that's potentially underwater with no skin in the game, with a monthly payment that you can't afford. Now, we've been covering this in Market Briefs. Market Briefs is my free financial newsletter. If you haven't joined Market Briefs yet, well, it's an easy and free way to stay up to date on what's happening in the housing market, the stock market, the general economy, and the global economy. You can read it in less than 5 minutes every morning, and it's completely free. So if you want to read Market Briefs, I got the link for you down in the description below, or you can also go to briefs.co/market. That's briefs.co/market. And this is where now Zillow put out over the weekend their prediction that they are expecting home prices now to rise faster than what they thought before. The Zillow economists are now expecting national home prices to rise by 6.5% over the next 12 months. And the reason why is like what I've been talking about, low inventory of homes coupled with demand that's still there. And here's what Zillow had to say, quote, limited for sale inventory continues to push home prices upward, even as mortgage rates remain elevated. So home prices are going up still in many pockets around the country. In some places, you are starting to see home prices begin to fall, but in a lot of pockets, you're still seeing home prices rise. And this is where Zillow is saying, well, now it looks like home prices will continue rising because people just keep buying homes. The Federal Reserve Bank is wanting to cool down the demand. They want to cool down inflation. They want to cool down home prices. They don't want home prices to fall. They just don't want them to rise as quickly. This is where the Federal Reserve Bank is trying to raise interest rates to make it a little bit more expensive to buy a home, or a little bit more difficult to buy a home, that we have less demand. But people just keep wanting to buy a home. And this is why the Federal Reserve Bank is saying, well, we might have to keep raising interest rates higher than expected. So on one hand, we have interest rates that look like they're going to be going higher than expected. On the second hand, well, we're not seeing that real slowdown in the economy or the demand side of things like a lot of people thought. And so home prices are still rising. And this Zillow is saying, well, it looks like home prices are going to keep rising at least over the next 12 months. And on the third end, we still have this super low inventory of homes available for sale. Zillow says that just over half as many homes were listed for sale in July of 2023 compared to July in 2019. And we have 29% fewer new listings entering the market in July 2023 compared to the year before the pandemic. So not only do we have a low inventory of homes, we have less and less inventory entering the market. And this is where understanding now supply and demand is going to help you to understand how the housing market works, because the price of homes depend not on interest rates. They depend not just on the economy, they depend on supply and demand. Interest rates affect demand. The economy can also affect demand. But you also have to look at supply. Why are people willing to sell their homes? Why do people want to sell their homes? Are their homes being built? Are people being forced to sell their homes, aka foreclosures? We're not seeing foreclosures right now. We're not seeing homes get built fast enough, which is creating this inventory shortage. And then people don't want to sell their homes, because if you sell your home when you have a four.
All right, let's go ahead and pause it right there. So first of all, what he's talking about is the fact that Zillow is the one that sounds like that has this this 1% down payment mortgage available. Christian, are there any other lenders out there that are doing the same thing, or is it just Zillow? Oh, we can't hear you.
Christian.
You cannot hear me. I was muted. Zillow does not own any rights to a mortgage product, but they do have a hell of a branding strategy they've sent out. Funny that during the time of that video, they can only lend in one state, though. That was kind of a fun little nugget that he shared there. It is not a Zillow loan, guys. It is a very commonly offered loan right now, and I will explain how the different products can vary, because there are different versions of this. They are not all the same loan either. And I think, I mean, just to kind of summarize what we heard in much fewer words, high rates lead to less interest in buyers. However, that's still being overcome by lower volume, by lower inventory. Rates have not cut into the buyer pool as much as, in regards to supply and demand factors as the Fed thought. So now lenders are trying to come up with something that can trigger some buyers, right, to overcome these low interest rates. I'm sorry, to overcome these high interest rates and high prices. And the thing they landed on was lower down payment loans. Easier to save in this environment. You don't have to save $100,000. You can save $5,000. It's pretty much the gist of it, right? Once again, just want to be clear. This is not Zillow. This is not anything. This is nationwide. It's in all the states. Talk to lenders that can actually offer it. Typically, do you guys want me to just get into it? I can just
keep going. Yeah.
Jump right in. Perfect. Typically how the loan is structured is it is a 2% grant. Okay. So it's structured as a 3% down loan. This is very standard for first-time homebuyer loans. You can put 3% down on a conventional loan. This is not an FHA loan. Okay. So it's not FHA 3.5. This is a conventional 3. It's actually 0.5% less than your FHA standard. But they structure it with that 3% down. The lender credits you 2% of your purchase price for you to bring the difference of 1%. How does the lender credit you that? That's the question everybody's asking. Well, typically on these loan products, you're going to get a little bit higher interest rate. It builds into what we call the spread and the margin of the loan. Also, lenders aren't writing business right now, so some business is better than none in their minds. They've also, in the fine print, have added a little asterisk. Up to a max loan amount, up to a max grant amount of $4,000. So what this means, on a $200,000 purchase, okay, everybody stay with me, $200,000, Your normal 3% down would be what? 3% of 200 is $6,000. That would be your normal down payment if you did this loan the old way. Mm-hmm. They are now granting you $4,000, so you're only coming with $2,000. The moment you go over a $200,000 sales price, though, that $4,000 is gone. So what they should say is 1% down or $4,000, whichever comes first. But that's not sexy. Okay. Most of these loan products, I've seen a couple that don't seem to have that disclosure. About 9 out of 10 of these loan products that I have found all have that $4,000 cap to them. Obviously, if you guys are pursuing one of these loans, verify with your loan officer. Obviously, verify it's not Zillow, who can only lend in Arizona, apparently. That's weird. They're a nationwide company. Don't know who made that decision. Yeah, Daniel said, sounds like the Midwest special. Pretty much. So people are probably thinking these $1-2 million sales prices in California, they're going to conveniently not tell you that on top of all this, my last point, not only is there the $4,000 that they're withholding. I saw somebody actually asked earlier on, this probably scrolled up a little bit, but typically these loan products will also come with what's known as AMI, Area Median Income Limits. What that means is that if you just Google, for instance, I'm going to do this right now. If I just Google AMI limit for Los Angeles County, I live in LA, you guys do it wherever you're living. You can actually search what your AMI limit is in California. For a single individual, 80% of the median is considered what these programs allow for. Okay. And in LA, that is $70,000. I got news for you guys. And that means, I'm sorry, let me explain this before the news. You can't make more than $70,000. That is a income limit to access this loan product, primarily because these are meant for, whether it's lower income individuals, first-time home buyers, typically the people who fit in that category. Most of these products that you hear down payment assistance or first-time home buyers, typically that also comes with AMIs in a lot of cases. Okay. In LA, $70,000. And now moving on to the news. I got news for you. If you're making $70,000 and that's the limit of what you're qualifying with in Los Angeles County, you don't qualify to buy a house that is currently on the market. So it's a catch-22. Oh, I make low enough of money to qualify for this loan product, but no house prices are low enough to buy. So it's like, it's not going to happen. Now, if you're out in Wichita or you're, Little Rock or something, it's very possible it works, right? Your purchase prices are lower. The AMIs may not be completely out of whack. LA, New York, Miami, Denver, it's not happening, right? The purchase prices are too high. So that's all the unsexy stuff they don't put on those loan disclosures. They just go out and say 1% rate, and we have gotten an influx. This is what I'll end with. We have gotten an influx of people who have requested our services saying, I got promised a 1% loan. They're now not offering it, and I'm in contract, and they're telling me I owe 5% down, and I don't have it, and waived my loan contingency.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I don't want to cuss on here, but that is cruddy, right? I mean, that's really, really, really bad service where their goal was just to get you in the door because Zillow's not doing many loans right now. Okay. And that is the problem they're having. So they want to get first-time home buyers in no matter what the situation is and do the little flip-flop on you, potentially even after you go into escrow sometimes. Most loan officers will try to do the flip-flop before, say, hey, you don't qualify for the 1, but we have a 3, and then try to get you that way, but at least they got you in the door. It's shady sales tactics. Whenever you see like this crazy new, like, hey, you can buy a house with no money, like typically there's something to it, guys. I think most of you probably know at this point, and this is no exception.
So let me ask you this question. One thing that hasn't quite made sense to me in the past is the fact that you can have these low down payment programs for people that are maybe lower on the income side, right? And to me, that sounds like that's even riskier for a bank to be handing out those kind of loans, especially in a market like today, where if you buy something and you've got 1% equity in that property, the market shifts, goes a different direction. You're going to be upside down in that house really quick. And if you have to sell it, you're going to be stuck. Like I know with VA loans, a lot of those are assumable. So the 0% is a little less risky because somebody can assume that loan. But from like just a whole holistic perspective, am I seeing that wrong? Is there something that I'm missing there, or are they pretty risky?
No, it's definitely risky. And you know, it's a lot of these programs are the lenders taking that risk, right? They're giving people 2% down. To clarify too, like down payment assistance has been out forever. This is not a new category. It's just now sold as a 1% down loan, right? We have 0% down full down payment assistance options. We like never do them because very rarely is it in the best interest of the borrower. Like this is not like some brand new revolutionary idea. Somebody somewhere high up in the lender said like, hey, 1% sounds cool. Let's do that. Like we've had 0% down, right? It's just you get all these crazy like equity shares and really high rates and high points, and like very rarely does just telling somebody to save up the 3.5% and get FHA loan not put them in a better financial position than like maximizing leverage and doing all these crazy equity shares with your lender. Like it's not good. We like very rarely recommend. I've done like 2 down payment assistance loans in my life, and like I've been in this for over a decade. I've funded thousands of loans. Like very, very, very rarely have I determined it actually puts the borrower in a beneficial, you know, it puts their interest first as opposed to advising them correctly and structuring a more comfortable loan for them, right? And all that goes to say, with like I mean, I'm seeing some comments in the chat here. I mean, if you got that trust, whether it's with your realtor, you know, David and Kyle, if it's with your lender, me, if it's with your insurance agent, if you're going to somebody for advice, check with them when you hear these like revolutionary things. They're like, hey, have you heard the Zillow loan? Like, text me, call me, guys. Everybody has my email. Like, it's all over the place, right? Like, hey, have you heard about the Zillow 1%? Like, at least you don't have to be in the unknown about it, right? Like, it's free advice. Like, I'm going to respond, you know? That's all I would say. Just don't fall for the you know, crap that's out there half the time.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that's the key, is making sure we go into we all need to recognize that the market is in a constant flux, right? It's always changing. And a lot of it is dependent on what's happening with the Federal Reserve. And I think I just saw earlier this week, I know it's not the topic of today's video, but Christian, did you see that the Fed had actually paused rate hikes for now, and they're kind of assuming, and I guess the stock market took a little bit of a hit because of that, and they're saying they will increase them again in the future. What sort of impact will that have on loans coming up in the future as well?
Yeah, we've been kind of holding steady with the advice that we're giving for probably the last 6 months or so. I see rates staying where they are, maybe creeping higher until probably the end of 2024. I think we're about 18 months away from a rate drop. That's, if I had to be a betting man and really pick a time where I saw something happen, I would guess around 18 months. It just makes sense with the trajectory. If you look back in historical data where similar things like this have happened, historical rate hikes, that's typically been our cooling off period. If history is any guide here. And, you know, that would put us in what, you know, mid 2025 or so, right? In the first quarter of 2025. You know, and obviously that's not a crystal ball. That's not me saying, you know, structure your, you know, go buy everything with the knowledge that you can refi in 18 months. It's just that's kind of what the signs are pointing to, especially when the Fed continues to come out and say, we're pausing with slow hikes expected for at least the next year, right? I think it'll go a little longer than this next year. I think they'll hold it, like I said, for that 18-month mark. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong, and they hold it for only 12 months. That'd be cool. But like with what you said, Kyle, all of these programs coming out that they're risky, right? I mean, is it ill-advisable? Is it lenders, you know, maybe biting a bigger chunk off? I don't know. I can't answer that on a macro scale. You know, I've been really big on pitching, you know, getting like a DSCR loan, maybe 5% down on LTV, because like investors are the people who aren't going to default, right? Like let's get people who are making strong financial decisions, not, you know, try to shave off the already 3% down payment that there and get it down to 1%. Like, is that really where we want to be targeting here? Now, first-time home buyers, I get it. A lot of protections and help does need to be in place, but like, you know, maybe let's get some like financial literacy and education into, you know, the general world, you know, instead of like, hey, you can buy everything with no money and you can finance it for the rest of your life and into your kids' lives. I mean, that's like, you know, car loans are at 10 years now. Like, I learned this the other day. You can get a 10-year car loan. I remember when I was young, my mom was like fighting to get a 3-year car loan. You couldn't even get that. That was like ludicrous if you couldn't pay your car off in 24 months. And now they're financing it for a decade. Your car's not going to be running in a decade. That's so insane to me. It's like, how is that even? And that's what we're what we're pushing because, you know, less money down and no money down and you don't have to pay any interest. And it's just, I just can't help but feel like there's a small subset of people that are being advised the right way. And I can't imagine a scenario where that's not the people that end up with 90% of the wealth. That's got to be the direction this goes, right? The people making strong financial decisions.
So let me ask this question to David, because Daniel put the comment in here. If you're timing an investment property purchase, when would you pull the trigger and buy? David, what would you say? Because I've heard some people say, hey, I'm just going to wait for the interest rates to drop until I start buying or looking for an investment property. There's people out there that want to time the market and wait for the right time. What would you say to those people that are looking to do that?
We should see if Daniel or Danielle, whoever this is, wants to come in and talk. There's a couple of points here. First off, if you're timing the market, does that mean we're timing the price? So we're trying to wait till prices drop to buy. First question that any intelligent person would ask themselves, what would make prices drop? So Christian, Kyle, what would make prices drop for real estate?
Sudden influx of inventory.
Okay.
Significant decreasing of rates.
There we go. Well, no, you mean,
but I mean, no, rates wouldn't even do it because there's still no inventory. Pretty much where we're stuck
right now. Sudden increase of
inventory
would be the best thing, right? Yeah. What would make there be a sudden increase in inventory?
Foreclosures, insurance defaults.
Good.
Pretty much that. People feeling like they don't have their golden handcuffs anymore from their high rates.
Okay.
You think some kind of black swan event?
Black swan event. Great. This is really good stuff. If that happened, like, let me ask this. What would make a sudden increase in foreclosures or some of the insurance defaults? What would make that happen?
Interest is a weird one, but I mean, unemployment, right? People losing jobs.
Yep. Eric Brown said that in the chat. Job loss.
Yeah, there you
go. Kyle's black swan event. Okay. So if there's a significant job loss to the point that it's creating foreclosures, to the point that it's creating a sudden influx in inventory, is that a time where you say, I want to buy a bunch of real estate? Are you going to have a lot of tenants that can afford to pay the rent if that happens? If there's all these insurance defaults and you can't get insurance on the property, do you want to buy a bunch of real estate? If there's a black swan event, is everybody in this chat going to be like, yes, we have a horrific thing that just happened, nuclear war, another pandemic. Is everyone going to be excited about owning real estate, or do you think that they're going to be thinking real estate is a bad option right now?
No, people are going to be holding on.
Yeah, they're going to be sitting on the sidelines.
100%. Yeah, and maybe they should be. Because if there's a black swan event, you probably shouldn't jump in and buy a bunch of real estate till you know what's going to happen. This is common sense. Yet it never gets, this thought exercise never develops. What would happen to make it happen? We treat real estate like the stock market. Like, oh, news came out and stocks dropped by 40%. I'm going to jump in and buy while they're low. Like, it doesn't work that way. Real estate prices don't change in a day. It takes 90 to 120 days before sellers will drop their prices, and even longer if you're going to drop them significantly. And it takes 6 to 12 months of significantly lowered prices before people will lower theirs even more. They tend not to come down unless there's a horrific situation going on. So all these people that are saying, I want to time the market, I'm going to wait for it to come down. No, you're not. You're not going to buy, and maybe you shouldn't buy if that happens. Just something to think about. As far as the interest rate thing, I'm timing that. I'm going to wait for rates to go down. What would happen, right, Christian, to the price of homes if rates tomorrow drop from 7.7 to 4.2?
I mean, incredible. I mean, there's everybody who got denied a loan in the last 6 months qualifies again, right?
Right. And do you think that they're going to say, I should go buy real estate, or you think that they're going to be like, no, I'm going to wait for prices to come down and rates to come down, right? It becomes a bloodbath.
Well, I mean, we just went through 2020 and 2021. I can tell you what they say, and it's waive loan contingencies and over offer by 100,000. Is what they do.
Then that house that was worth 600, that now someone pays 700 for it, and theoretically it's now worth 700 because now there's comps there, and now all the other houses are worth 700, and we're off to the races again.
Yeah.
Okay, so trying to time the market becomes impossible from a logistical standpoint. Like, if you're trying to do this wisely, you can't. Now you can maybe seasonally, like, it's easier to buy in the winter because you're going to get less competition for these homes. The downside is there's less to pick from. Less people are putting their house for sale, right? Or if you're going to list your home, is it better to wait until the spring, assuming you don't have a rate hike or something? Yeah, there's little things like that you could play. But it is not a thing like stocks or crypto where you buy these dips. Real estate is fundamentally different because the value of it doesn't change that fast. So I've never met a person who actually successfully time the market as a strategy to buy real estate. I sort of did that in 2009, 2010 when we had a crash, but I didn't intentionally do it. I just had a bunch of money when the market crashed. And so I jumped in, and it's been nothing but going up ever since. Like, I timed the market, but can I say that I intended to do it? No, it just worked out. You also can have times where I bought a bunch of real estate at like trying to time the market. Well, I wasn't trying to time the market, but you can make an argument someone would. And then rates went up right after I bought them, like 2.5, 3 points. Crush me in a lot of ways, right? Like the timing went against it. Trying to be smarter than real estate is stupid, is what I'm trying to say. You're much better off to just buy it and focus on what you can control, which is how much money you save, what you spend it on, and how much money you make. How's that?
I like it. I mean, it's very, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's very simple, but a lot of times I think what you said is exactly right. We don't think ahead. Right. We don't play out the thought exercise. We just say, oh, yeah, man, when interest rates drop, I'm going to jump in there. I'm not saying this is necessarily Daniel G in the comments, but a lot of us do it. It's human psychology. Oh, when this happens, when this event happens, I'll be ready to jump in. But we don't actually think of what the process will be like and what our state of mind will be like at that time, too. So really well said, and something we should all make sure we think about. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put on one more video. This one's from Graham Steffen. So he's got a slightly different take than Mr. Minority Mindset. So he's going to talk a little bit about the same topic, but with his Graham-like take as usual. And then we'll get to break it down, see what Christian's thoughts are on that. So let's go ahead and start that video.
Let's do it.
What's up, Graham? It's Guys here. The housing market has taken yet another unexpected turn because now you're officially able to buy a home for 1% down. That's right. This Phoenix Charmer could be all yours for less than $5,000. Or if you like turtles, you could move right in here for less than the cost of a used Chevy Impala. Okay, in all seriousness, these 1% down loans are now seemingly surging in popularity. And that begs the question, could this lead to a repeat of 2008? Are these loans going to push prices higher? And is this something that we should be worried about? After all, the housing market is apparently only a 5% decline away from more than 200,000 households falling into negative equity. Mortgage rates are currently sitting at their highest level in 23 years, and several markets are continuing to get more expensive. That's why we got to discuss precisely what's happening, why these 1% down loans are not exactly as they seem, and what this could mean for the entire housing market, since I have a feeling that most people never actually read the fine print, and there are quite a few details in this that nobody is talking about. Although before we start, if you appreciate all the research and information that goes into making a video like this, all I ask for in return is that you hit the like button or subscribe. That's it. It helps with the channel tremendously, so thank you guys so much, and also big thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video, but more on that later. All right, now as a bit of a background, I probably don't have to tell you that housing prices are expensive. Nationally, values are 44% higher today than they were pre-pandemic, mortgage payments are 54% higher in just the last year, and there appears to be no shortage of buyers and sellers waiting on the sidelines for things to settle down. Except now there's another option, and that's to buy a home for 1% down. That's right, Zillow has just unveiled their latest mortgage product aimed at helping undersupported Americans realize their dream of homeownership. And if this sounds interesting or confusing, here's how it works. Normally, when you buy a home, you're required to put down anywhere between 3.5% to 20% of the purchase price, depending on the loan, and then the bank will lend you the rest. This means on a $350,000 home, you'd need to come out of pocket anywhere between $12,000 to $70,000 at minimum just to be able to close, which is a lot of money for people to save. But not anymore. With Zillow, they will allow you to put 1% down, and then they will match you another 2% on closing, saying in a statement that this program could reduce the time eligible homebuyers need to save and open homeownership to those who are otherwise ready to take on a mortgage. From this perspective, those paying a high rent and unable to save would effectively be able to transfer their rent payment to that of a mortgage and effectively be able to participate in the housing market and build equity. Or I guess as Zillow says, this will help lower the barrier to entry and make the dream of owning a home a reality. However, even though this sounds like a miracle dream come true for home buyers, the reality is there's a lot of fine print that needs to be discussed, and most likely all of you watching are going to get denied. First of all, in Zillow's case, even though they plan to expand, as of right now, it's only a pilot program available to first-time homebuyers in Arizona who make less than 80% of the area's median income. For Phoenix, this means that if you're single, you need to have an income below $25,456 a year in order to qualify. And if you're curious how much home that'll buy you, you're going to want to listen to this. Assuming you have no other debt, most lenders would allow you to spend up to $933 a month on housing, which at a 7% interest rate and $100 HOA qualifies you to buy a home that's worth no more than, wait for it, $110,000. That means in Phoenix, you have a whopping 2 options to choose from. Take your pick between this 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo for $103,000 or this 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom for $98,500. That's it. Of course, for full disclosure, this example only applies to the median income of a single filer. And if you include a full household, which usually includes a married couple or family, the median income jumps to $99,000, which would allow a buyer to qualify for a home around the $275,000 price point. So how does this work exactly? Well, Zillow uses local first-time home buyer grants to help give you money upfront upon closing. And then most likely, Zillow could make a small profit in exchange for putting the loan together. And when it comes to my own thoughts on this, don't get the wrong idea, because I'm not against it, especially when these loans are offered to people who ordinarily would be getting nothing. And these loans are exempt from having to pay PMI, which is usually a requirement anytime you have less than 20% equity in a property. However, this is still not the entire picture for the buyer, because you're forgetting about another very important component when it comes to buying a home, and that would be closing costs. This includes things like inspections, appraisals, notary fees, escrow fees, insurance fees, and a variety of other miscellaneous expenses that they love to jab you with just because they can. And typically for the buyer, this equates to another 2% of the purchase price. This means despite being able to put 1% down to buy a property, you actually need more like 3% to be able to pay for closing costs. And realistically, more like 5% to be able to furnish the home, have a bit of a buffer for savings, and pay the property taxes. Although even though this might not sound as good as it initially did, what's even more remarkable is that Zillow's not even the first company to have done this, and other companies are offering exactly this to everybody, regardless of where you live, like with Rocket Mortgage. See, back in June, they offered a program called One Plus, available to anyone nationwide, whether or not it's their first home, as long as their income is below 80% of the area median and they had a credit score of 620 or higher. Personally, this seems like a much more dynamic program than Zillow, and I think the only reason people aren't talking about it is because everyone loves to hate on Zillow, especially after their failed home buying endeavor, which we'll save for another time. Anyway, this One Plus mortgage is only available to primary single-family residences. They'll give you 2% of the home's purchase price as long as your total down payment is less than 5%, and in addition to the free savings, just like Zillow, you're not going to have to pay any PMI. Overall, these products seem incredibly similar to one another if you're comparing 1% down loans, with the exception that Rocket Mortgage doesn't limit you to one location or being a first-time homebuyer. But both of these at the core really just take advantage of publicly available grants that most people don't even realize exists, including some other options that take it a step further with no money down. Let me explain. In terms of these mysterious no money down loans and the future of the housing market, most people have entirely forgotten that these have been an option already for over a year, and it originates from none other than Bank of America. See, this was launched as a pilot program for first-time home buyers to help underserved neighborhoods in Charlotte, Dallas, Detroit, Los Angeles, and Miami. This would allow individuals and families to obtain an affordable loan with no money down, no closing costs, no PMI, and even more remarkable, but no minimum credit score. Now, even though these loans are intended to help underserved minority neighborhoods, eligibility is based entirely on income and the home's location, with prospective buyers being required to complete a homebuyer certification course prior to applying. On top of that, even though it's technically a no money down loan, according to Bank of America, the company will make a down payment for the client in the form of a grant up to $15,000, giving them immediate home equity. That way, they're not buying a $400,000 home for a $400,000 loan. And the moment they close, they instantly have $15,000 worth of equity, just in case the market begins to fall. Although in terms of my own thoughts on this, as well as the future of the housing market, here's what I think. First of all, as a bit of a heads up, coming from someone who's worked full-time in real estate since 2008, I generally recommend not putting 0% down on a property. The thing is, with mortgage rates rising, putting no money down tends to put you in a riskier spot financially. Your monthly payment is higher as a result, and unless the market just keeps moving higher, it limits your ability to to sell without coming out of pocket for closing costs. That's why I think a better solution is to focus on saving more money today. Now, in terms of the impact that low or no money down loans could have on the market, realistically, I just don't think there's going to be much of an effect. For instance, I think it's easy for people to have this narrative that
banks are running out of borrowers to lend money to, so they're lowering requirements so they can issue more loans and make more money.
And sure, I bet there's some aspect of this that has to be profitable for the bank in order for them to want to do this. But I think it's very important to mention that these programs have been out there and running for quite some time. They just don't get advertised or talked about because they're not Zillow that everyone loves to hate on. For example, Legacy Home Loans offered eligible candidates in 6 U.S. cities to pay 1% down with a free appraisal, free home warranty program, home buying counseling, and financial assistance with closing costs. State Employees Credit Union also offered this in North Carolina with 100% financing, no money down without any PMI. USDA loans offered something similar for buyers who want to put no money down. FHA loans have required 3.5% down with FICO scores as low as 580, and VA loans require no money down as long as the appraisal doesn't come in lower than the asking price. Honestly, the biggest issue that I see with all of this is that offering no money down loans at a time where median prices and mortgage rates are at their highest exposes the buyer to a lot of risk in the event they lose their job, the income declines, or something happens. In those cases, it's highly unlikely that they would be able to come up with enough money to sell their house when accounting for closing costs, and that could put them in a very dangerous position. Just consider this. Let's just say you bought a $400,000 home, no money down, a $15,000 Bank of America grant, and a loan of $385,000. If the market stays the exact same and you sell your home 1 year later for the same price of $400,000, 6% commissions and closing costs would leave you with $376,000 left over, meaning you'd have to come out of pocket $9,000 to exit your loan. Okay, now even though that might not seem like a huge deal, if the market were to fall just 5%, you'd be left with $357,000 after closing costs, meaning you would have to come up with $28,000 just to sell your home after 1 year. Obviously, this presents a substantial risk that most.
All right, let's go ahead and stop there. And just to add on to that, you would need all that money, but you would also have, you know, your realtor fees and all the other fees that cost to sell a house. So not only are you upside down on your equity, it's more expensive to sell your house. So let me just do this really quick. If anybody wants to come on and join us live, I just put a little tracker down there at the bottom. Text the number below, 833-777-0309. Maybe you have a question related to tonight's topic about 1% down mortgages. Maybe you've gotten one before. Maybe you're considering getting one, or maybe you just have a question, a mortgage question in general that you want to ask the guys here. Text that number below, and we'd love to have you come on live and have a chat with us. But Christian, let me throw it over to you. What are your initial reactions from Graham's video? I love how these YouTube videos do a really, really good job of taking about 2 minutes worth of information and jamming it into 12 to 15 minutes. They kind of just say the same thing in a loop. You're on mute again.
You're muted.
Strike two, my friend.
I'm sorry. That is strike two. That's fair. Kick me out on strike three. I was laughing at that as well. Nothing against Graham. Good dude. But that was probably the most impressive part of the video is how you know, long he stretched a little bit of info for. Pretty much I was trying to see if he caught anything that I didn't share. He did mention that some of the programs don't come with PMI. Fun fact, it's because they buy out the PMI. Every single loan product outside of an FHA loan can buy out the PMI. You just get a higher interest rate. So that's how they structure it. I mean, I think I was trying to find a point that we didn't touch on prior. I think that was just about most of what we covered. The AMI, the Zillow is not the only one, right?
Yeah, I mean, he basically talked a lot about the same stuff. He talked a little bit more about the risky side of, or the risky potential with these types of loans, which we also hit on. But overall, I mean, it does make you wonder what the implications are of these types of loans on the market are going to have. You know, he thinks the risk of happening is probably not going to, you know, hurt the market in the long term. But I think it's something on an individual basis to be concerned about, right? To kind of take it to the old Dave Ramsey narrative. If you can't afford it in the first place, you should not be buying it. Yeah. And it's the same thing with these types of loans, right? If you can't afford the 3.5 or 5% down payment with the closing costs, you probably shouldn't be buying that house in the first place. And it's not anything that's negative or to say like, you know, you're less than. It's just more you're not in a position yet to be able to buy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean the years and years and years of what have proven, you know, a strong fundamental start has determined that there's a target for your down payment, right? I mean, it's been that way, and that's what's determined to be the conventional or standard loan for a reason, right? I mean, there's sure, while everybody loves the idea of I get a house for no dollars out of my pocket, you know, it's like David's analogy. You'd always use this. Sure, everybody wants a 6-pack until you realize what having a 6-pack means, right? Like, do you want to be in the gym every day? Do you want to count calories? Do you want to not ingest fat and you know, 2x your body weight in grams of protein every day? You know, like, that's not going to put you in a great spot, right? Just from like maybe a social aspect or an enjoyment of life aspect. Same thing, putting 0% down. And if we just get a little like, you know, like blow on the candle of the economy, like, oh, I'm unstable all of a sudden, you know, and there's a reason why these programs have been this way for so long. The 5%, the 3.5% FHA, you know, VA being the big exception, but that's because it's guaranteed by the Veteran Administration. So like, they're on the hook if you go underwater, you know? So, I just, you know, it's easy to get caught up in these fads. It's easy to get caught up with what's, you know, hot on the skillet today. You know, it's the same thing like with the NFL, right? All of a sudden you see, you know, I've noticed you don't see as many Patriot fans around as you used to. You know, is that just me? I don't know. Maybe that's sorry if there's people here from Boston, but you know, you always hear about like fair weather fans, and you know, you're seeing more Eagles fans these days. You know, be careful of like a fair weather loan officer, like a guy who's just like, hey, I can get you a loan no matter what, no money down, 500 FICO, no problem. Like, you know, there's standards in every industry for a reason. It's like the realtor that'll list your house for $100. It's like, are they going to do a good job? You know, or you actually want a service here, right? That I don't know. It's just, it doesn't sit well with me when, especially Zillow, who's not a lender. Like, Zillow's not a lender, guys. They don't know what they're doing. They tried to be a home buyer and they failed. Like, they're a listing service. That's what they are. They are a website for a listing service. They're trying to do all these other things, and I haven't seen a single thing they've done that succeeded. You know, I don't anticipate this being the first one. You know, just get good advice from people in a position to give good advice.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we talk about here every single week, right? We try to talk about the skills, the mindset, the life that is required to be somebody that's worthy of doing big things, whether that be investing in real estate or running a business or whatever. And if somebody's just handing you the keys to the car, but you've never even taken a driving lesson, right? You're going to be in big trouble. And I think that's what happens with a lot of, and I get a little bit nervous when I see these types of things come out, because they almost feel, this is a very strong word, but they almost feel predatory, right? Because it's like, here, take this. This can make your life easier. But anytime there's an easy button, something that feels too good to be true, it probably is. And I mean, human psychology, we want to take the easy way out. We want to take that easy path. But in reality, it's like that lotto winner that ends up winning, you know, $5 million, $10 million, and they wish they would have never won because they've never learned how to actually manage that amount of money, and their lives, if anything, their lives always end up becoming terrible, right? This is kind of along those lines.
It's usually gone after 2 years and they're in a worse position than when they started, right?
Yeah. Speaking of David's beard, I think your beard is definitely catching up to minority mindset, and I kind of would like to see it get that far. I think it has that potential.
It's definitely the biggest it's ever been. It's still in a puberty phase, though. Like, it doesn't quite know exactly what it's going to be. It's a little awkward at times, but you just have to get through it.
Yeah, but it's a little less awkward than it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I appreciate that. The awkwardness is dwindling, much like puberty, right? Eventually you grow out of it. Just got to hang in there.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the David Turner, the remake. Let's see the bearded green.
Bearded, like the bearded dragon,
or like bearded Brandon.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I think that it's telling how much information people get is marketing. Okay. Like we listened to 2 videos about these loans. Very few people gave, really neither of them gave any insight. Very little of it was useful. They didn't tell you that it was a low income housing product that's being repackaged and marketed as a 1% down loan. They didn't tell you that it only applies to people that are probably not able to afford real estate in the first place, and only in certain markets where it's probably easier to buy houses anyways. This isn't Southern California where it's incredibly difficult to get involved, or South Florida. These are like Midwest areas where it's not as hard to save up 3% for a house, because the house only costs $200,000. Just got to save up $6,000. Very, very different scenario. And how much information that we all get that we think is free is actually legit. Because if it's free, there's no incentive for people to give a care about you building your wealth. They're trying to get your subscriptions. They're trying to get your likes. They're trying to get your comments. They're trying to get your money to sign their course. They are not trying to help you build wealth. There has to be a reason for them to care. And most of them don't. Like we just described, both of those people said the same things that we say on here. They just took 20 minutes to say 2 minutes of information over and over and over because they want your subscription for their YouTube channel. That's the only reason. So we've got experts in here that are kind of shooting straight and letting you know. Now, Christian, do you have a favorite loan product for somebody who is in a situation where they're like, well, I don't really want to put 25% down?
If you're a veteran, the VA. If you're not a veteran, FHA. Those are the tried and true loan products.
What about a conventional option?
Conventional, well, with multifamily, conventional scales up. If it's a single family with an ADU, conventional is good. Little bit less forgiving on FICO scores. I mean, in all reality, I shy away a lot from telling people like this is the loan product in public forums, because like, man, somebody can come in absolutely convinced the right loan product is for them, and I will guide them in a completely different direction. And I've seen it happen so many times that I know better than to tell myself, everybody go ask about an FHA loan right now. Right. You know, FHA is more forgiving to the first time home buyer kind of, character, caricature of a person, maybe rougher on the FICO, rougher on reserves they may have. While as conventional, little more favorable to higher FICO, higher reserve people. But I mean, just talk to an LO. I mean, there's so many loan products. There's so many. Like, let that be my job in fitting together the puzzle pieces, right?
It's a good point. There are 5% down conventional loans if you buy a primary residence. I keep thinking every time I hear people say there's no good deals, there's no good deals. Why don't you just buy a house in the best neighborhood you can as a primary residence and find a way to house hack? Do you have to go for the most complicated, cool sounding, the strategy that's going to make you sound good at the cocktail party or at Bigger Pockets conference where you walk in and say all of these bells and whistles? Or can you not just be like the actually wealthy people that say, I bought in the best location, and you added bedrooms, or you added a unit to it, or you did something to make it make sense, and 10 years later, your property has blown away the complicated thing that somebody did in Louisville, Kentucky, or Wichita, Kansas, whatever it is. In a market like this, just do that. Put 5% down, buy the best property you can, find a way to make it work, and wait it out. And if we get to a point where there's a bunch of great deals out there, be saving up money the whole time, go bananas at that point. But why would you wait and do nothing while you're trying to get to that point? And the other thing is, if you're waiting for rates to come down, why wouldn't you buy now and then refinance when those rates do come down?
Yeah.
Yep. Short and sweet. That's right, Steph. Did we have anybody, Kyle, that wants to come in?
Nobody has texted. If you guys want to come in, text the number below and we'll have you come in. Sach asked a question. Are VA loans rate lower than conventional or FHA, assuming the same credit score?
VA loans will typically be the most beneficial, but they're close to FHA. The big difference is VA does not have PMI. So if you think how most people do, where like, what's the lower monthly payment? It's going to be VA, but not necessarily because of a significant difference in the interest rate. It's because of the lack of PMI that FHA does have. So same rates, VA and FHA aren't really the same rate, right? You got that extra inclusion of the PMI on your monthly payment.
While we're on the topic of VA loans, right? Because I hear a lot of people talking about VA assumable loans. You should be looking for assumable loans. Do you mind explaining a little bit about what a VA assumable loan is? And does that apply to investment properties, or is it only if it's going to be a primary residence?
VAs are only for primary. FHA, I'll group VA and FHA because they're called we call them govy loans. They're government-backed loans. but they are both assumable, which means there is a standard and pretty strict process of having buyer, owner A have buyer B come to them and say, I want to buy your house, but I don't want to go get my own mortgage. I want to take over your mortgage. This is what Pace Morby and everybody does, like, subject to financing. This is like, that just says like, oh, just wave your hand and pretend nothing happened. This is a tried and true guarantee process to actually transfer the loan to your name, right? That's called assuming somebody else's loan. The benefit is you can go assume a 2.5% FHA loan in this market where rates are 7%, right?
Yeah.
That's benefit for sure. It can be strict, and the servicer has to work with you, because I can't help with an assumable loan. It's not an origination service. You're assuming an existing one. So you got to go to whoever is servicing that loan, and hopefully they're good. I mean, they may not respond to you for a month, right? And unfortunately, I can't provide anything there, right? That's just a service that I can't offer. I have no control out of it. Also, David, on my staff, I saw you asked for Instagrams. Mine has underscores in between the One Brokerage, just FYI. I think that's actually a fake account. That's the only reason why I say that.
Oh, be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's at the _1_broker, not at all the one bro. Yeah. Thank you, David. Make sure you copy that one, Steph, if you're still here, because I'm pretty sure that one before me is either a spam account or it's like a boat rental brokerage or something. So, which is not me. I do not rent boats.
That'll be your next business. Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely.
The one boat ridge.
The One Brokerage. Yeah. That's very funny.
What issues are you guys having in the chats? Let us know. What's your struggle? I think that my feel for the market is we're kind of in a holding pattern. Everyone's like, yeah, I still like real estate, but I don't really know what to do, so I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
If that is where everyone's at, I don't see anything rapidly changing anytime soon. I look at it kind of like you're in a rear naked choke and it's just slowly getting tighter. It's not hammering you to the point that you're going to tap right away, but it's probably not going away. The market is going to continue to just get tougher and tougher and tougher, which is why my advice has pivoted towards it's more than just investing in real estate. Work on the fundamentals. Do you have a budget? Do you know where your money is going? Does every dollar that you make, is it accountable to a purpose? Or are we just like, well, I got money coming in, I can always just go make more of it? And on that note, are you actually maximizing how much money you make? Are you going to work every day as hard as you can? Are you preparing for the worst? If you think this recession's coming, you want to be ready. Do you have as much money squared away as you can? Are you the best you can be at your job? What if 50% of your company was laid off? This is not a scare you tactic. I'm telling you, like, this could very well happen in a lot of industries. If you took our companies and 50% of the people got laid off, it'd probably be a little hiccup. The bottom 50% aren't really doing hardly anything within the companies. Okay. And that's not throwing shade at anybody. It's just like the natural order of things. In most businesses, 20% of the people produce 80% of the results. Are you in the top 20 is what I'm asking. Or have you gotten comfortable and you think that it's always going to be this way and America is always going to be the top country, even if we're not producing the most stuff or chasing excellence? Because we see, at least from an economic standpoint, our competition, I don't want to say our enemies, but our competition is gathering round and forming a little alliance right now. They're trying to figure out a way to knock us off the top spot. Think about the last time America produced goods and services and sent them to other countries. We don't import stuff. Nobody in India or the Philippines or China is coming to us and saying, America, we want you to do this thing. We export everything. You know what we give them? We give them dollars, right? And are those dollars worth anything? Well, they were, but if we just keep printing them, it's not going to keep being that way. So this is just your weekly wake-up call. Do not get caught with your pants down thinking that just because it's been easy, it's going to keep being easy. Very unlikely to see that happen. The new normal is that real estate is expensive. It's unaffordable. There's not a lot of good investing options. Inflation is making your dollars worth less. Welcome to what the rest of the world has had to deal with. In Australia, this is how real estate's been for a long time. In Canada, ask anyone in Toronto. We have anybody here in the chat from Canada? What's real estate like up there? Okay, they're all coming to America to buy our real estate that we keep complaining about is too expensive.
And they don't have 30-year fixed loans.
Most countries don't.
Yeah,
I don't know anyone that does other than
I learned about it the other day. It's wild.
Most countries, we subsidize these, and we all complain and bitch about how our government is against us, yet we've got all these programs that we just are entitled to thinking that we deserve.
Yeah.
You go to Australia to buy real estate, it doesn't work this way. You go to China, they've all been coming here. Remember how long we heard about Chinese people overpaying for American real estate, how stupid they were? They knew they were overpaying. They're not stupid. It's just a better investment than buying Chinese real estate.
Yeah.
Right. Their supply demand curves are the opposite of ours. They have too much supply and not enough demand. So I think we've had it easy for so long that we think that this is normal, and it's not. Make good financial decisions. It's, you know how this is what I compare it to. You know, when you're 20, you can eat whatever you want. Christian, you showed me that video.
Still have a flat stomach, right?
I don't want to talk
exactly
about
what
it,
I mean, right?
I don't want to talk about it.
Flat stomach, you still look grip when you were 20. It was not hard to be in shape. I did not make an effort to be in shape when I was 20, 25. Like, you just don't. I literally, if I just ate like terrible for a week and got fat, one weekend of running and it was gone. That's how I thought life was going to be, right? Kelly Rachel says I missed that, right? Then you get older, you hit your 30s, and it's like harder. And then as you get your 40s, 50s, 60s, it becomes progressively more difficult to get in shape. That's kind of what our economy is at right now. It's a 45-year-old man who's like, man, I'm not terrible. I'm pretty good with money. I'm pretty good with what I eat. You got to be really good when you get to be 45, 50, not okay like when you were 25. So let's just take that approach. Do me a favor, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to keep getting information like this and you don't want to have to sit through 35 minutes of the other people saying the same information that we're giving you in 5 minutes, and you want to hear from experts in the industry that do loans, that sell houses, that own real estate, not YouTube influencers that just talk about it, but they don't actually do any of it themselves, this is the place to be.
Yeah, that's really good, David. And I appreciate what you said, because it's true. I think we have to put ourselves in the mindset of recognizing, like, things can change very quickly, but more specifically, like, there are tons of things that can happen outside of our control, right? I don't know if you guys have been following, but there's like a bunch of ecological problems happening with the Panama Canal, which is causing drought, which is supposedly going to create a big supply chain issue. I don't know if you guys remember the Suez Canal, like when that went down and how big of a problem that was. People are saying the same thing's going to happen with the Panama Canal. So there's things just even outside of our economy that can impact us here on the U.S. soil. So we have to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to control the things that we can. And that includes having those daily disciplines, right? Having that six-pack abs, or working towards it, or at least creating the skills and the habits to have it. So truly, truly a good thing. We have to be ready, because at any point things can change overnight.
Yeah. In fact, I even posted a video about this and everyone got mad about it on my Instagram. I don't get it, guys. Like, if you were 20 years old and someone said, hey, when you're 40, you're not going to be able to eat that McDonald's every day, stop eating it. Does it make sense to get mad at them just because it's not an issue for you right now? Or do you think maybe getting healthier eating habits when you're 20, when you don't need them, might benefit you when you're 40 and you argue? That's what we're talking about. And even if somehow we do have another great run, it's because we're going to print more money and it's going to make the crash even harder when it comes. There is no way to avoid the fact that the dollars that we are all used to are becoming worth less. The cost of everything is going to become worth more. Technology is improving and making human labor less and less necessary. So if you're not improving your skills in that way, you are going to be less needed. And when this all catches up at the same time, I think it's going to be a kick in the balls. So we're just starting to put your cup on. That's all I'm trying to say. Yeah, it might be uncomfortable right now. Maybe a little bit of chafing. Doesn't feel good running around in that thing, but you're going to be glad you have it on when the shot comes.
That is exactly true.
All right, like Christian, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it. Even
Absolutely.
If your microphone was giving you a hard time and kept muting you for some reason that we can't.
I get two freebies. I get 2 freebies. I didn't get my 3rd strike. Come on now.
Kyle, great job.
It's been a few weeks since we had you here, Christian.
That's right. That's right. I'm rusty. I'm right. You gotta brush off the dust. I had a sprained ankle for 2 weeks. All right.
Yeah, you got to get back up to game speed. That's all.
That's right.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks, everybody. Yep. See ya.